I want to try in the next few episodes to get a gauge on Trump, to analyze Trump, to explain both the pathological hatred and the, you may call it, devotional affection. I want to sort of pull out the real Donald Trump from behind the shadows and the mask and the adulation and the hatred. But I'd like to start this by just talking about me and Donald Trump, my experience with Trump. And you should know that I have not been a sort of, you may call it, original Trumpster. When Trump ran in 2016, I wasn't in his camp, and neither was my wife, Debbie. Our largest associations were with Ted Cruz. In fact, Ted Cruz's father, Rafael Cruz, married Debbie and me in 2016. We didn't endorse Cruz. We didn't endorse anybody, but we were seen to be sort of Cruz backers. Partly we didn't do it because we were making our film about the election. And of course, when Trump became the nominee, we were on board with Trump as the Republican nominee, but we would have been on board with any Republican nominee. My first experience with Trump directly was when I was speaking at Convocation at Liberty University. This was right before Trump had one of his debates with Hillary. And I was talking to Jerry Falwell Jr., and we were talking about bombshell questions that Trump could drop on Hillary. And I said, I've got a couple. And Jerry Falwell Jr. kind of chuckled, and he pulls out his cell phone, and he goes, okay, tell him. And I'm like, tell who? He goes, Trump. And so he calls Trump on the phone, and Trump comes on right away, and Jerry Falwell hands the phone to me. And I told Trump, I got a couple of great questions for you to put to Hillary. And he goes, oh, Dinesh, that would be tremendous. My people are awful. Send them to me. Send them to Bannon. I'll get them. And so I sent him the questions, which were really good, but he didn't use them. It's very Trump. He said he wanted them, and then he didn't do anything with them. And I didn't do anything more with Trump immediately until I got my pardon. Again, the interesting thing about my pardon was that I didn't know Trump. He didn't owe it to me. Ted Cruz had approached him about it, and as Ted Cruz tells it, when Cruz was in the limousine with Trump, Cruz just said, hey, Mr. President, you've pardoned Scooter Libby, you've pardoned a bunch of other guys, you really should pardon Dinesh D'Souza. To which Trump replied with one word, done, done. Now, there's a whole bunch of legal rigmarole. The process took a month, but he did it. I was sitting in my office, I got the phone call, and it was Trump. Hey, Dinesh, I'm sitting here with John Kelly. You know John Kelly, don't you? And I'm like, no, actually I don't. I know he's the chief of staff. And Trump goes, well, turning to this business at hand, Dinesh, your case. He goes, I knew it was BS, he said the word, from the beginning. And you know what? I'm in a position to do something about it, so I'm going to grant you a full pardon in the morning. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this is so unusual, because any ordinary person, even any ordinary Republican, would have had strategy meetings over this, would have consulted with pollsters, how's the media going to take it? But Trump was indifferent to all that. His basic view was, I know your case, I knew it from the beginning. When I looked at it, it confirmed what I already knew, and I'm going to fix it because I can. And that's the end of it. So the guy I saw had a visceral sense of what's right, what's wrong. And he knew my case was an injustice. And he goes, I'm going to give you your American dream back. Just get out there and be a bigger voice for freedom than you have been before. The funny thing was, as he was talking and as I was listening, it's funny how your mind wanders even when you're talking to the President of the United States. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I think what you're doing, and I think you know it as well as I do, at this very moment, you are delivering a giant up yours to the Obama administration, which he was. And I believe he knew it, and I knew it too. And then in 2019, in November, my family got to meet Trump for the first time. And in person, we were at the White House. In fact, we were led into the Oval Office and there was no one there. We're looking around. Here's a photo of us sort of like, wow, we're in the Oval Office by ourselves. Look at all this cool stuff in here. And then in comes Trump bustling. The purpose of the meeting was a kind of meet and greet to sort of thank him, if you will, for the pardon. Ended up being a 45-minute session. And we talked about a lot of very interesting things. We saw a glimpse of Trump's very kind of unusual personality and style. I asked him about the Indian Prime Minister, Modi, and Trump goes, with a kind of twinkle in his eye, he goes, well, he's a stone cold killer. And then he adds, but other than that, he's a really nice guy. He's a stone cold killer, but other than that, a really nice guy. My wife Debbie had brought a picture of her aunt, kind of a prosperous looking picture, the before version, and then the effect of socialism, her aunt looking haggard and emaciated. And she showed it to Trump, kind of to show him this is what's happening in Venezuela. And Trump, who knows what's happening in Venezuela, took a look at it and he quipped. He goes, what a way to lose weight. And Debbie, I think, didn't quite know how to take it. She was like, but this was Trump being Trump. There's a time for seriousness with him, but there's also a time to be jovial. I think the most touching moment of the whole meeting was when Debbie said to Trump, she said, Mr. President, you get bashed on every platform, every second of every day. A normal person cannot take that kind of abuse. How do you take it? And I think we all expected Trump to go, ha 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 ha, ha, I like it, these people are idiots. Kind of that Trumpian ego that we've all come to expect. But interestingly, Trump didn't do that. He sat back and he goes, guys, he goes, at the end of the day, he goes, I gotta tell you, it gets to me. He goes, why? Because I'm knocking myself out for the country. He goes, I'm doing my best. We've had some amazing successes. We just got al-Baghdadi. There'd been a complicated operation. He described it in some detail. And he goes, these guys won't even give me one day of credit. All they want to talk about was the dog that went in to the tunnel. And then he turned to me and he goes, look, Dinesh, what they're doing to you, what they tried to do to you, what they did to you, they're now doing to me. In a way, he saw his own case, which was impeachment. This is the first impeachment, as nothing but my case from several years earlier, enlarged on a massively bigger scale. And finally, we talked about the future. And weirdly, in retrospect, Trump asked what he should do after the election. And I looked a little startled because I thought, aren't you running again? But he meant, no, after the presidency. After the presidency, Dinesh, what do you think I should do? And I said to him, Mr. President, you should start a network. Not just a cable channel, not some rinky-dink thing with talk radio and TV. It should be like CBS. It should be like ABC. You've got a massive following. You've got the means to do it, which is to say the money. You've got the connections to the people who can organize and finance it. You have the following. You already have the audience. So let all the networks fight over one half of the country. You take the other half. I still believe that this is, in a way, the best opportunity for Trump to do this now. Why? Because as he gears up, unless he wants to basically exit the stage, he's had enough, he wants to play golf, I think the best thing for the Trump family to do is to get out of real estate and to go into the media business in a way that we never imagined. Embrace this. This is the most valuable thing that Trump could do for the MAGA movement and for the Republican Party because it builds us our own megaphone, which we don't currently have. Yes, we have Limbaugh. Yes, we have somewhat of Fox News. Yes, we have talk radio to a degree, but we have nothing to compare with the megaphones of the left. Trump can help us to get there. And if he does that, it will actually be to our long-term benefit. It will affect every election going forward. It will allow us, if we believe our ideas are true, if we believe we can make a powerful case for them, all we need is a megaphone to put those ideas before the American people, and we will defeat and rout our opposition. Bottom line, I think all of us left the Oval Office, my family, looking at each other, and we thought, wow, we've always thought of Trump as this massive egotist. He's actually not that egotistical. He has a vulnerability to him. He rarely shows it in public. I honestly think if he had shown more of that part of himself, he would have been much more difficult, much more formidable as a candidate in the election. But that's Trump. He puts on a strong exterior, but behind it, he's not only a patriot, he's not only an entrepreneur, but he's a really nice guy with a smoldering sense of what is right. And when he is in a position to do it, he'll always do the right thing.